figured I would get on and do another video. Hope everyone's doing well. News has been kind of funny. Stuff kind of gets into the news. We had this whole Iran thing, and then it died down pretty quickly, thankfully. Not totally unexpectedly, but still thankfully. So, let's see. Still 0. All right. Wonderful. It's hard to perform with an audience. Okay, it's already titled correctly. So, one thing I'll start off by talking about. Oh, nice haircut. Thanks. Got all of them cut. Get about 2 or 3 a year, and it was time. You're on break, but you're getting off. What kind of job do you have that you can do that, Mark? It's funny, I'm getting comments, but it says I have 0 viewers, so I'm kind of curious how that works. But yeah, it was time. It was definitely time to get a haircut. Evening, Richard. There we go. There we go. Now I'm seeing some viewers. Oh, the rainbow. Yeah, I've never worn this. I've had this a while. This is the first chance I've had to wear it. Yeah, it says 7 on mine too. But it took 3 or 4 comments and it still said 0, which obviously couldn't be correct. Can I do your accounting homework? Nope, I would not be the person to do it. I was never very good at math, really. My father's actually a math teacher, and I learned early on not to ask him for help because he would want to give a really detailed answer when I would just want the answer. Um, And I did actually take advanced math when I was in middle school, but I lost interest by the time I was in 8th grade, and that's when I started getting bad grades, actually. Still waiting for your shirt review video. I'd have to put them all together, but maybe. What do you think about Virginia? That's a good thing to talk about, actually. Um, so Virginia has kind of really heated up in terms of like the Second Amendment battleground area, and it just seems like we have a real difference where you have a very hardcore left-wing governor who is an, I mean, he believes in infanticide, and the gun control measures that they're talking about are by far, like, they're very, very draconian, and yet a large part of the state, around half the population, maybe more, and most of the land area is strongly pro-gun, and they've really polarized. And this is kind of a tricky situation because it's not like it's just the government versus the people. It's a lot of the people and then a lot of the apparatus of government, whether we're talking about the counties, the sheriffs, the National Guard, whatnot. And so when I heard that this march was being canceled because of, quote, credible threats, right? There are these very vague accusations of potential violence. It struck me as disingenuous. I think that that's probably a lie. When they come out and they say they have credible threats on intelligence, that's almost an admission that they don't have anything. And I think that's probably what's happening there. Uh, I just saw just before I came on that they are accusing these white nationalists of having machine guns, like 2 or 3 guys. It's going to take a more clear evidence than I saw in the article to really prove anything. Just because they had weapons doesn't mean they're going to use them. I have weapons, that doesn't mean I'm going to use them. I think that a lot of people who don't own guns just assume that if somebody has guns and ammo, they hear something like you had 10 guns and 1,000 rounds, that you must be like ready to light shit up, and that's just not necessarily the case. Most gun owners have that kind of stuff. So I think the situation in Virginia is very is very volatile and very interesting, and I'm obviously rooting for a particular side. Birthday abortions. Yeah, that's basically, it's not an it's not an abortion though when it once it's been born, right? You're talking about a post-birth abortion, which is just straight up infanticide. And he talked about that in such a cool way, and it went over. It was so, I mean, nobody on the left I saw was really upset about it. The media didn't make a big storm about it, but everyone on the, within the alternative side of the country heard about that, and they know. I mean, that was the logic all along. If you're going to say that abortion is justified because you don't feel like you're ready to be a parent, or you don't want it in your life at this point, or you didn't ask for it, none of those things change once the baby's born. All those still apply. So, probably had bad math teachers. Well, they were public school teachers, so very likely, but I wouldn't be able to compare it really. Um, any thoughts on the current situation going on in Iran? So I think, man, now there's way too many questions. So the situation in Iran, I think that neither side wants to get into a shooting war. America doesn't want to get in a shooting war, and Iran doesn't want to get in a shooting war. Obviously, they would come out the worst, but it would still be a disaster for us. They could wreak havoc. I think that the United States has allies, two in particular, who would like us to go to war with Iran. That would be Israel and Saudi Arabia. So, two countries that ideologically should hate each other and historically have been at odds, but because of their mutual distrust and hatred of the Shia and their mutual um, manipulation of the United States, have made common cause now for a long time, at least 15, 20 years. And I think they would love for us to go to war with Iran, but it's just not in our interest. Iran does not attack the United States directly. People talk about these hundreds of Americans who died in Iraq at the hands of Iran. That is a conflation. These are Shiite militias in Iraq that are not necessarily part of Iran or being supported by Iran. Um, and even if they were, I mean, everyone else has soldiers. We have soldiers in Syria and in Iraq, and we support terrorists in Iran, Mujahideen al-Khalq and such organizations, MLK or MEK. Um, so I'm glad that it de-escalated. I'll give some credit to Trump, although I think probably most of the people in the military were telling him this is a bad idea. It's always been a bad idea. People say it's like 50 million people in a country that's basically like Colorado. It's mountainous, and they're right there at the Strait of Hormuz. They can cut off not our oil supply. We make enough oil on our own that we don't need it, but for the rest of the world, they can cause lots of problems. So there's a lot of posturing, and there's a lot of this low intensity conflict, which doesn't do any good, and it's still dangerous because look, Saudi Arabia wants them taken out, Israel wants them taken out, and they both have powerful influence in the United States. So bad situation, but it didn't become World War III, so we can all be happy about that for now. Let's see. I feel like Virginia is a testing ground for what they could come with future draconian gun legislation. Well, I think that I don't know if that's actually what's happening, but I definitely think that the pro-gun control people, right? There's a very small minority of the country that is very, very strongly pro-gun control, and then there's a much larger part of the country that it's still a minority, I think, but a large part of the electorate that is lukewarm for gun control. It's not a big issue for them. They're going to care more about climate change or healthcare or immigration or any number of other things, but they support gun control, common sense, so called. And I think that the people in the gun control movement have really been frustrated with their lack of success. It's been very hard for them to get much done outside of just a few municipalities. And I do think that they want to establish precedents. This is a big part of their laws. They get laws passed that they know don't do anything, but if they can get them passed at the municipal level, then maybe they can get them passed at the state level. I won't be able to find it, but there's a great video where it's a city council and they're all Democrats and they're all for gun control, and they're being asked to pass some kind of bill, some kind of, I forget what it was, but it was a relatively minor thing on gun control. And the thing is, the admitted evidence was that it would have no effect on crime. And one of the councilmen was like, why are we passing this if there is no evidence that it will have any effect on crime? And they were told by the proponents, the legal team for the Brady Brady campaign to prevent gun violence or whatever, that, well, the reason we want it passed here is so that we can get it passed at the state level. It will become then an excuse to get it passed at a higher municipality. And so that is what they want to do. And they do want to have these test cases. They want to see if they can get the gun rights people to back down. And the thing is, they're not. I mean, there certainly are lots of gun rights people who they will turn in their guns and they will go along with it and they won't make a big deal. But there's a fraction that will, and then they will be supported by a much larger fraction that won't, and it could get very ugly very fast. And it seems like the disparity here in terms of passion is such that it's almost like an unforced error. Um, uh, we have credible intelligence that white supremacists coming from out of state. Yeah, this so credible evidence, but you can't assess the quality of secret evidence. This is the whole problem with the intelligence community, where they come out and they say, well, we have credible evidence, but I'm not going to show you the evidence. Anyone, you can't be persuaded by that, and far too many people are. Uh, what are your view on open borders? Ask me again when I get caught up with the other questions. Yeah, that's 2 boxes of 22. Yeah, 22s, you can, like, $10 is like 1,000 rounds, or at least it used to be. Um, a rifle is not a machine gun. Again, this is a technical detail that is lost. I've heard Sam Harris talk about this, how it's really frustrating when you read like a New York Times article and they can't make the author, right? They're writing a piece on gun policy and they can't, it's very clear that they don't know the difference between a fully automatic and a semi-automatic rifle. They don't know what a muzzle brake is, or a barrel shroud, or a flash suppressor, or a silencer, or any of these other. And so they're writing about it. They have this really strong opinion. They should be relatively expert and knowledgeable, and clearly they're not. And obviously there are people on the gun control side that do know, but it's a tiny, tiny fraction. But what should the Libertarian Party change? Wait, what should the Libertarian Party change its name to if it wants to keep out people that aren't ANCAP minarchists? They're literally a socialist caucus. There's two people in it, but still. Well, I don't know if changing the name would keep out people that are like that out. So, um, but a more toxic name would be something like the Rothbard Party, the Anarcho-Capitalist Party, the Private Property Party, something like that. But Libertarian is a fine name, so I don't think that they should change it. It is true that the term Libertarian has a history that goes before the contemporary American Party. So left libertarians aren't wrong when they say, "Hey, that's our name" or whatever. But it's been our name for 50 years as well. So I mean, they can give, we're not going to give that back any sooner than they're going to give up liberal or so. But Walter Block on abortion. It's okay to evict, but not to kill. So I've talked about this before. Um, Eviction is almost always a euphemism for killing, right? So they're talking about evicting it by ripping its arms and legs off and then sucking the brains out and then saying, well, that's eviction. We're not murdering it. We're just removing it from the womb. That's not what they're doing. Now, if you're talking about, we have a reliable, safe way to put it into some kind of device or a surrogate to, an artificial womb, and we can take it out and keep it alive and keep it safe, then yeah, I don't have as much a problem with it. It makes sense as long as that's not significantly riskier. Now, if doing that gives it a 50% chance of dying, then no, you can't do it. But if it's, statistically more or less the same or near enough, then that's not a huge deal. Um,